everybody, live from Toronto, it's Hebsy on Sports. Welcome to the show. I'm Mark Buehrle here in Little Italy, along with Toronto Mike, a proud resident of New Toronto. And if you haven't guessed by now, we're pretty Toronto-specific here. And that's because we got the Leafs, we got the Raptors, we got the Jays, we got TFC, we got the Argos, we've got the, what's the lacrosse team's name? I forget now.
Rock.
All these teams, tons of sports fans here in Toronto. And today on the show, we're going to talk about your favorite team, my favorite team, our favorite teams. You might even add the Buffalo Bills to your favorite team. Even though it's Toronto, I get that. They're the nearest NFL team, and a lot of folks from this particular area are fans of the Buffalo Bills. They're in action again this weekend. Very exciting in the playoffs. Today on the show, I don't understand why teams that break protocol and become infected with COVID don't have to forfeit games. I don't understand this. Why are we pandering to these teams? Do they have no respect at all, some of these people? And I don't care if it was a player that went to a party without a mask. I don't care if it was a public relations assistant, that somebody did something wrong that affected the entire team, and now it's affecting the entire league just because of someone's cavalier attitude. I'm sick of this. The Dallas Stars have 17 people who came down with COVID. And what does the NHL do? Okay, we're going to postpone your first 3 games. And it's going to probably be more than 3 games. And it's going to screw up the schedule. Like their opponents, why should their opponents have to suffer? Oh, we're sorry, you're going to have to go back to Dallas at another time in March because they're sick right now. Well, what if when March comes along, I got injury problems? Why should I have to go back to that game because these jerks, somebody on that team or a few people, decided to break protocol? I just think it's unfair. We're going to talk about that a little bit later on. I mean, look at Kyrie Irving, this nutbar. He goes maskless to his sister's birthday party when he's supposedly sick. Excuse me. He was taking private time. That's what it was.
Right,
personal
time.
A private matter. Personal matter. The personal matter was he had to go to his sister's birthday party with a bunch of other maskless people. So what's going on there? And not only that, now the Nets go and trade for James Harden, who, if I'm not mistaken, was at a couple of strip joints recently. Got fined $50,000 for going maskless at a strip joint. Mike, is that any worse than just being maskless, period?
Maybe you're indoors, it's close, you're close to others. It might be worse. Right?
Crazy. It's nuts. The Leafs and Habs the other night, man, what a game that was.
Yeah.
We see more of that end-to-end action.
Right.
And I say from here on in, no more exhibition games. Just forget exhibition games.
Yeah, but you're forgetting something. You're forgetting
have scrimmages,
something.
Have 20 blue and white games, right, Mike?
I guess if you can sell 18,000 tickets to blue and white games, why bother with the exhibition games? Like, it's all about the tickets, right?
I guess you're right. I thought the game was great. I thought the broadcast was terrible. I thought for the first game of the season, a big opener, Montreal, Toronto, that it would be a better telecast.
What was lacking?
Maybe it's because I thought Ron McLean, and David Amber, and the A-team was going to be doing this like Hockey Night in Canada game, but it wasn't. It was a Sportsnet. It looked like a Sportsnet, like a regional game. And I didn't recognize like a few of the people of the panel. Wait a second. So, you let me know.
I'll tell you. I just think Brian Burke is so freaking miserable. Like, I just have no time for such a sourpuss. I'm trying to watch a hockey game and have some fun, Leafs versus Habs, right. And it just seems so miserable. But I'm curious to know from you, like, who do you think on that panel? It was Jeff Merrick was basically the host, and you had your panel. But who was lacking, in your opinion?
Right, that we're trying to tease that. We're going to get
into okay. I'm flying blind.
Into the tease here.
I'm flying blind here. I didn't know.
We're still in the tease.
My apologies.
Portion of the show. But yeah, we'll get into that. Don't you worry. The Raptors continued their odyssey in the United States because that's where they live now. They were home to Charlotte, and they almost blew a double-digit lead again. But they hung on to win. We'll talk about that. The NFL playoffs, the Bills get the Baltimore Ravens at home Saturday night, while a couple of 40-somethings will get it on in the Big Easy Sunday night. Brady against Breeze, 85 years old between the two of them. Liam Hendrick signs with the White Sox, $54 million over 4 years for a relief pitcher. That's crazy. And there were people who said, the Jays should go after him. Like, I wouldn't pay that much for a relief pitcher. I'm sorry. No. And we've had him before. And at least one baseball broadcaster, Mike, thinks Mark Buehrle should be in the Baseball Hall of Fame and actually put his name on his ballot.
Wow.
Now, that's really crazy. And 80% of all Japanese people surveyed said they would vote against holding the Olympics there in July. And meanwhile, 5,000 fans showed up at were allowed to go into the game, the Phoenix-San Jose hockey game last night in Phoenix. 5,000 of them.
Wow.
Even though Phoenix and the state of Arizona is one of the biggest hotbed for COVID-19. Hundreds of deaths yesterday alone, thousands of new infections. But hey, 5,000 of you, come on, yell and scream and breathe on each other inside the arena. Of course, they must have great ventilation there for them to be allowed to do it.
Yeah.
But I can't believe what's going on in sports these days. So let's get right to it.
Okay, let's do it.
The NHL announced on Tuesday that 27 players tested positive during formal training camp. And while the positive test came from 9 different teams, the Dallas Stars accounted for 17 of them. Now, the Stars have already paused practices. I like the way they said, we've paused practices due to the COVID-19 issues, and it remains to be seen if their season will start on time, even after being rescheduled. They're set to begin with a game against the Lightning on January the 19th, which is next Tuesday. It doesn't look like it's going to happen from the accounts I'm getting. It doesn't look like they're going to be able to field a team. Their first 3 games of the season have already been postponed, which means their opponents have to rejig their schedules too, even though their opponents are COVID-free.
Okay,
nonsense.
but do you think that that's a CBA thing, right? Like that's probably handled on a, they made some agreement on this, like, right? Because I'm agreeing with the sentiment.
Mike, I don't think so. I'll be honest with you. They're making it up as they go along. I really believe that. They don't know themselves. We'll worry about it when the time comes. Like right now, it's like it's only Dallas right now. And remember, you're not playing in a bubble anymore.
Right.
I mean, in the bubble, you got no problems. Okay, you're tested. But once you're allowed out of a bubble and you're going to be getting on airplanes and going on buses and come on.
Right.
These people are taking advantage. It should be a privilege to be able to play hockey. My kids can't play. Can your kids play, Mike?
No, they cannot play.
Are they allowed to? As he said, well, as long as Sidney Crosby can play, then,
well, if maybe
why not your kids? Why not my kids? So, this is a privilege, and they're taking advantage of it. And now the league is basically saying it's okay if you get tested positive for COVID. We'll just postpone the games to a later date.
So you're suggesting that if you can't ice the team, you forfeit the game.
Exactly.
But that's what the problem, I guess, is that that's one less.
But isn't that the case? Isn't that the case even without a pandemic? If you can't field a team, you have to forfeit the game.
But it's all about the dollar bills, yo. Like this is going to be one less television program for whoever's got the rights.
Yeah, sorry about that. But how about if the Leafs go into Ottawa like they are tonight? They're playing tonight and tomorrow in Ottawa.
Right.
And they find out that Ottawa's got whatever number of people tested positive for COVID.
Right.
And on their taxi squad of 5-6 people, even if they include their taxi squad, they can't field a full team. They can only field 14 players.
Right.
Like Germany did during the World Junior Championships, right? Or something.
Something like that. You
either play with the 14 that you've got or you forfeit the game.
And that would be fun.
In the NBA, there's teams that are playing with 7-8 guys.
Right.
Okay.
Right. I'm with
now,
you.
they could have said, no, that's not enough. And the league could say, oh, let's postpone the game. But the league in that case says, look, you do what you can to field a team. You do everything possible to field a team. And if that means using, only 7 guys or whatever, well, that's your disadvantage. You're going to have to play with 7. It wouldn't be any different if the team just had a massive injuries. The point is this, is that there's a certain responsibility that you have to take as a team, an entire team. And if there's one bad apple, then the whole team pays. And that's the way life usually is. I mean, you go into any team sport, and the coach says, all right, anybody breaks curfew, the entire team gets punished.
Right.
So in this case here, if the Dallas Stars, and I don't know who it was, and they're still doing contact tracing, if that person was cavalier enough to think that they could break protocol, okay, because there's no bubble anymore, and that affected the entire team and the entire league, then that person's team should be punished by having to forfeit those possible 2 points. That's all there is to it.
Tough love. I like it. Yeah.
And here's the thing. Like, I like Rick Bowness. I'm happy that he's the head coach of the Dallas Stars. He got the job last year, the full-time job this year. He said, quote, the Stars did everything right last week, and we still got hit with this thing. No, Rick. No. Somebody screwed up on your team, and it should cost your team. But all it's costing your team is you're going to have to play a more compressed schedule when you're back to playing.
Right.
But it should cost you forfeit. You should have to forfeit those games. Or, like I said, field a team. If 17 people on that team, and that I'm thinking it's 17 players or 15 players and 2 staff. Because even with 15, if you should, with your taxi squad, still have another 10 skaters. Go ahead and play with 10.
Hebsy, what about
I've
this?
had to, look, when I play pickup hockey, sometimes we play with like 5 guys the whole game.
Sure. Absolutely. Absolutely.
Hey, you got 9 skaters, you got a taxi squad, maybe you get special dispensation from the league that allows you to call up somebody else from some other, I don't know, whatever. Go get the Zamboni driver for your goalie.
Right.
But field a team. Go and field a team.
Do you think, though, that...
And don't tell me that, we're going to lose ticket sales. You have no ticket sales. You're not going to get less people coming into the building because you can't field your A team. The game will still be televised.
But Hebsy man, if it was going to cost the team points, like something significant, and that could be a possible playoff spot, then is there any potential there that teams find a way to hide? Like the people who are supposed to be quarantined are now they're going to lie or somehow find a way to deceive the league. You know what I mean? Like the protocols, maybe they'll that might incent teams to be less honest. This way, at least teams have to be very honest about who was potentially exposed and needs to be quarantined, et cetera, et cetera.
Look, Mike,
you
may recall several months ago, an NHL player contracted the coronavirus, tested positive for COVID-19. Do you remember who that player was? Do you remember someone releasing that player's name?
Steve Simmons.
People being outraged.
Yes.
Invasion
Matthews.
of privacy, that no one should know who this NHL player was that contacted. God forbid we find out the name of the person that contracted COVID-19.
Right.
Austin Matthews.
Right.
Thank you, Steve Simmons. But no. How dare he do that when every other league was naming the names of the guys? We all knew it was Rudy Gobert, the first guy for Utah Jazz. People were coming forward, taking responsibility. Well, guess what? The NHL just this week said, by the way, we are now going to release the names of players who have COVID-19 during the regular season. They didn't do it during training camp. They didn't do it last year. But now they're doing it. Why do you think that is, Mike? Why do you think they're being transparent now, the NHL?
You tell me.
Steve Simmons got roasted because he violated Austin Matthews' privacy? Come on. We're talking about the interest of the entire public.
Right. Man, it's a mad world. It's a mad world, Hebsy.
Mike, I don't like it when they're keeping things from us. I don't like this. The NHL's making this up as they go along and hoping like hell that because they're not playing in a bubble and because all the Canadian teams are staying in Canada, that nobody associated with, and I'm talking, there's several tiers of teams. Obviously, the top tier are the players, the coaching staff, the training staff that all travel together.
Right.
Then there's another tier that they're not supposed to be in direct contact with, which would be the PR people, et cetera, et cetera. And then there's another tier, which are the stadium workers, the maintenance workers, the Zamboni drivers, which cannot come in contact with either of the other 2 tiers. Now, that's easy to do in a bubble. You don't have to worry about that. But man, they're traveling all over I'm in Dallas, I'm in Phoenix, I'm in LA. You know where the San Jose Sharks home games are this year?
No.
They're not in San Jose because Santa Clara County had declared an emergency a long time ago.
Okay.
Wouldn't even allow them to congregate on the ice to train or practice, much less go to the games. Guess where their home games are now? Phoenix.
Wow, I didn't know that. That's wild.
There you go. Phoenix. Where are the Toronto Raptors playing their home games?
Tampa.
Is it Tampa or Orlando? I can't even remember. Is it?
I think it's Tampa. Like the bubble was in Orlando, but I think they play in Tampa.
Right. It's Tampa. I get those 2 places mixed up anyway.
Right.
It's like Central Florida. Anyway.
Right.
So, we got some serious problems going on here. People are like, oh, yeah, we'll just postpone. I'm looking at the schedule going, oh, wait a second. I'm looking for, no, I can't watch that game. Even in English soccer, they postponed one game and then they added another game and some team complained that they only had 48 hours notice. And it's just ridiculous. The NBA, by the way, this week is postponed up to this point right now. They've postponed 10 games. 10 games.
Right.
Specifically, those are the Phoenix Suns, who happen to reside in the same city as the Phoenix Coyotes, who think it's okay to allow 5,000 fans in while the Suns are racked with COVID.
What's that about? Is that just some Republican governor who just doesn't believe in the virus?
But even the people, look, the way I understand it is this: 5,000 unvaccinated people indoors, cheering, yelling, screaming at their play. I don't care if you're within 15 feet. If I'm yelling and screaming at you, my spittle and everything else is, going right towards you. I don't,
bad
we've
idea.
got good ventilation in the arena.
I mean, and you know what, Hebsy? I noticed even if they wear masks, they buy the hot dogs and beer. Well, guess what gets removed while they have their, half an hour meal or whatever.
Right. So, I mean, this, and again, we're far enough away in Toronto. It's like, hey, guess what? In Ontario, we're down to 2,000 some odd per day. We're doing better now, so we're kind of in our own little Toronto or Ontario bubble here. We're trying to be.
Right.
Whereas, the rest of the world, and certainly the rest of the sporting world, there's all kinds of problems. There's teams in every league basically that have got this, and it's only the beginning of the season, Mike.
We've just begun.
Getting on airplanes and go to hotels, and I mean, come on, this is no bubble. Here's what they should do: if they have another outbreak like this, they should find a way to schedule a bunch of games, like playing every day, for example, for 20 days or whatever it is, in a bubble. Take a week off. Just take a week and then come back into the bubble and play your other 20 games or whatever it is. That way you can assure people that there's not going to be a disruption, that last year it worked out, I think, pretty well. If you think about it, NBA and NHL, I think they did a heck of a job in the bubbles.
Agreed.
So why can't you go back to that rather than the fear of testing positive, of ruining the schedule? Imagine Dallas in, March or April, when they've got to play all these games now, the ones that were postponed because of COVID. And now they're playing, 6 games in 7 days or something to catch up.
Well, the players don't want to do it.
And the teams that they were supposed to play have to alter their schedule to go back and play these guys because they were reckless back in, January.
Players don't want to go back in the bubble. Like this, obviously, to me, it's obvious. I know. They'd rather sit around and not be able to practice for 2 weeks because somebody contracted COVID and gave it to everybody else in the team. Is that what you want? It's Hebsy. A privilege to be able to play. You have to take that responsibility seriously. You've got people watching you, and the only reason they're watching you so intently is they can't play. They're living vicariously through you. Those twice a week hockey games that you used to play, you can't. So you're going to watch your heroes play. Oh, I'm sorry, I can't watch them play. Why not? Oh, they got COVID. But I'm a Dallas Stars fan. I've been waiting for this forever. What are you telling me? Well, we don't know when they're going to play. Can you imagine if that happened to the Leafs, Mike? And we're sitting here, we're watching other teams play, but we can't watch the Leafs play because we don't even know when they're going to start. Holy cow, would that be, what? Imagine the TV networks. What are we going to do? Leafs Montreal opening night. Nope. Sorry, Leafs got coronavirus. Leafs Ottawa. Nope. But in its place, we're going to show you Edmonton and Winnipeg. Although I will say the fans would understand because this is a cluster F for everybody in many regards, and this is just one of them.
But you've just got too many people in prominent positions that are jerks. Like, look at Eugene Melnyk this week. He tweets out.
Yeah.
He tries to float this cockamamie idea that the Ottawa Senators could safely put 6,000 fans in the stands at Canadian Tire Center with proper protocols and testing and distancing and masks and everything.
Right.
And you're looking at this going, is this guy nuts? Like, this is at the same time where Rob Ford is locking down the province of Ontario. And this Yachts is thinking, let's open up the games because he's got Toronto coming in the first weekend. He's got 2 back-to-back games with Toronto coming in. He's thinking, oh my God, this place would be packed with Leaf fans 2 nights in a row. Can I get a piece of that?
But he's been
as if you and I are going to drive up from Toronto to Ottawa and sit in the stands with 6,000 other people rooting for the Leafs.
Check your sources, Hebsy. He's been loony for years.
Oh, I know that. And then on the other side of it, in Phoenix, he's looking and going, well, how come Phoenix can put 5,000 people in the stands? Well, that's because that particular jurisdiction allows for that. Okay, and that's why they have one of the highest rates of COVID-19 in the United States. So there's a whole other thing. Those are your partners in the NHL, by the way, Eugene. Just because there's an all-Canadian division doesn't mean they're now looking at the States going, what's going on down there? And by the way, when you get to the Stanley Cup playoffs, eventually you're going to have to play a team from the United States if you're from Canada. Am I right?
Do you think they'll bubble up for that? Like, what's the plan when they get to the final?
Well, that's
four?
my point. There is no plan, Mike. Because they don't want to admit that if this goes wrong or that goes wrong or something goes sideways, we have this contingency plan. They're going to tell you about it when they absolutely have to. I don't like that at all.
But you and
I want to know. As a fan, wouldn't you like to know what's the plan if this happens? What if they can't all play the same number of games? Are they going to have the semifinals and finals in a bubble? Because the teams that are playing will have now crossed borders, or who knows, all that stuff.
On this very program, Hebsy, you and I shit all over Major League Baseball, laughing like, are they gonna they can't finish this season? This is ridiculous, and they ended up having a World Series champion. So all bets are off.
No, you seem to labor under the misconception that I was against that type of thing. At the beginning, it didn't look good. I remember the St. Louis Cardinals in particular. But by the same token, they did have a plan in place. They did say, the Major League Baseball said what was going to happen. That some games, the games would only be made up if they were, necessary in the standings. And they did. They adhered to that.
Okay.
But yeah, you're right. And NFL, same thing when the NFL started. Oh my God, how are they going to do this, right? COVID. Especially in the NFL where guys are breathing heavy. They're like 2 inches from each other.
Right.
But they managed to do it because everyone involved all bought in. Said, look, if you screw up the whole team, you screw it up for everybody. Right? And it was like that coach saying, hey, anybody breaks curfew, the entire team runs laps. Right? In other words, look after not just your personal responsibility, but those of your teammates. That's a big responsibility. Do not break protocol.
Yes. Now, quick aside before we get back to your action here. Brendan Dunlop, you broke the story. I remember the day you broke the story on Hebsy on Sports that Brendan Dunlop was no longer with Sportsnet, but he only came public with that information yesterday, which was like several months later. And somebody tweeted at him something about how it just mentioned something about how those announcements happen on Toronto Mike or something. And then he replied, and I'm reading it right now, that Hebsy and Mike are pretty good at reading the tea leaves. Ha ha. So basically, Brendan is basically shouting out you basically for being the only one to have this scoop that he was no longer at Sportsnet. So.
Well, I was interested too because, I turn on the TV and I get the fact that there's less sportscasts. And I don't even know. I don't think Sportsnet was even doing. I think they had abandoned their evening sportscast, at that particular time because there were no games. And I noticed that Brendan, wasn't part of their. Like normally it's him and Martine Geyer. They did the weekends for the longest time, right?
Right.
And, he talked to a few people and, some anonymous sources say, I don't think he's with them or I don't know if they renewed his contract. And I just contacted Brendan and said, hey, I miss you there. Is everything okay? Are you still with Sportsnet? And he said, no, he basically said that they didn't renew his contract. There was no announcement made. And this is another thing. You see a guy I think Brendan was there for, 7 years, maybe?
Something like that.
Years? I don't know.
Yeah, like almost a decade.
You want to be able to say goodbye to your audience, or you at least want the station to send out a press release or something saying, we thank Brendan Dunlop for 8 great years and we're going to miss him and stuff. But like nothing.
Right.
Nothing at all. And I just think that really does the viewer a disservice. It just makes me wonder what's going on at Sportsnet there. And what's happening there? And the other thing is, even looking at the opening night between Montreal and Toronto, I was really disappointed in Sportsnet's coverage of it. This is your opening game. This is big. It's Montreal, Toronto. It's the first of 10 meetings between these two.
I'm very interested in this. I can't wait for these details. Share.
And yet, I don't know. Like tonight's game's on TSN. I know what I'm getting with TSN. I'm not going to get any surprises. You know what I mean? Oh, what's Jack Armstrong doing on the hockey panel? Right? I know what I'm getting on TSN. I know exactly what I'm getting on TSN.
So, and I apologize if I'm stepping all over you here, but I'm literally flying blind because I have no notes. I don't know where you're going, which is actually kind of fun. I have no idea where Hebsy's going, just like a listener. So, which is it's kind of exciting. But what is it specifically about this? Because I watched Leafs versus Habs, although I barely remember any of the people on the panel. I sort of only remember the game, and Chris Cuthbert seemed to call a fine game like he usually does. But tell me what bothered you about that telecast.
Well, first of all, we were told a while ago, if you're not mistaken, once Chris Cuthbert came along, Chris Cuthbert was going to be doing Western games. That Craig Simpson and Jim Houston were going to do Eastern games, right? Which I assumed was Leafs and stuff.
For last season, right, yes.
And that Chris Cuthbert, in actual fact, was going to do Edmonton Oilers games and Western games along with, I think, Louis DeBrusque.
Okay.
That's what I remember hearing. We're going to pair Chris Cuthbert up with Louis DeBrusque. And our number one unit, of course, is Houston Simpson. So naturally, I'm thinking Toronto, Montreal. It's Houston and Simpson. I mean, you're number one team.
But I have to ask you this, Hebsy. Who do you think calls a better game, Houston or Cuthbert?
Oh, Cuthbert.
Right. So we win.
But is Cuthbert doing the games with Craig Simpson? That's not what I was told. I was told that it's Simpson and Houston. You're breaking up your number one team, or was just one of those things? Like, did Houston? Could he not make it? Was he?
I read something, some kind of press release from Sportsnet that they were that Cuthbert was going to be like the Leafs guy. Like, I think he was.
No. I heard the other thing. That's why I say I think we all assumed that Cuthbert's from here, and the reason he took the job with Sportsnet is so he could be doing the Leaf games.
Oh, I think they switched.
I don't know. They haven't told us.
I thought they switched it. Like, I think for last season that was the case, and then they switched it.
No, what do you mean last season?
Well,
what last season?
Didn't now I can't remember. Didn't Cuthbert call playoff games in that bubble? Like, wasn't he here for that? Right? I thought he called the Western Conference final, and then
you're right. Yeah,
and then Houston called the.
That's right. He called the Western. That's right. He called the Western final.
So for that, he was.
And then Houston and Simpson did the Cup final, and I guess this year Cuthbert will do the Cup final. I don't know.
Yeah, who knows? Except that Cuthbert, in my opinion, is the best guy Sportsnet's got now that they retired Bob Cole.
But here's the thing with Chris is that now look, when Chris was at TSN,
right,
he had Ray Ferraro as his color guy, or usually it was Ray Ferraro, I guess. Or so now that Chris is with Sportsnet, who do you team him up with? Right? I mean, you got a superstar play-by-play guy.
Who would you like him teamed with?
Well, I'll tell you this right now. Chris is the kind of a guy, not that I know him really well, but I think you could put anybody with Chris and that person Chris would assimilate well. Chris can play either way. He can ask the questions, he can provide the commentary, he can sit back and say nothing while the color commentator goes off. It could be somebody really, really opinionated. It could be, I don't know. But I think Chris and Louis DeBrusque would make a great duo. And I can't say that I've heard them together. I mean, I just, when you think back, you're like, okay, I remember so-and-so was doing play-by-play. Who was doing color that day? Bob Cole and Harry Neal for years.
Yes.
Right?
Yes.
Gord Miller and Ray Ferraro now on TSN? Absolutely. Come on. Two peas in a pod. Jim Houston and Craig Simpson? Yeah, whether you like them or not, they've been around for years. But who do you team with Chris Cuthbert? And by the same token, if you're doing the panel, and think about this, how many years ago did Rogers pay $5.2 billion? And who did they have back in those days?
Strombo.
George Strombolopoulos, Don Cherry, Doug McLean, Nick Kyprios,
Damian Cox,
Glenn Healy.
Yeah.
You're right.
Yep.
They're all gone. There's only one guy left from that whole group.
Elliot Friedman.
Well,
Jeff Merrick's still there.
Well, and Merrick too, but now Merrick, and that's the other thing is and nothing against Jeff, but you don't bring your big guns out for the opening game, Montreal, Toronto. You don't bring Ron McLean or David Amber out there, the big boys, right?
Right. Okay, so you
got the B team, and there's 5 of them or 6 of them, I guess, if you include Caroline Cameron. And it's sort of like, well, what's going on here? Bunch of talking heads. I get that. But like Brian Burke is a sourpuss.
Yeah.
Right?
Right.
Anthony Stewart, I don't think adds anything.
Is he getting better, though? Is he getting better? Because he was green last year.
No, he's not. And the other thing, too, is he only gets like a minute. It's like, okay, Anthony. And he gets his 30 seconds. Right. And then the second time around, he gets like another 30 seconds.
Right.
And maybe a voiceover. Maybe here's a highlight that I want to talk about here. Kevin Bieksa is good. He's a little off the wall, which is good. Right. He just finished playing and he still has that, kind of this is what players go through. I like his inside hockey stuff. And Elliot Friedman, of course, solid, been there from the beginning.
Did you notice his hair was a different color? Or does that matter? I shouldn't notice these things.
Yeah, you know what? They went into that. Did they? On the panel.
It looks like a completely...
As to whose hair was dyed or not. And I think this all came from one thing, and that's James Duthie.
Oh.
Because a while back, somebody had mentioned, it might have been Jeff O'Neill on the hockey panel.
Yeah.
And by the way, there's your comparison right there. The TSN's hockey panel is aces.
Right.
They don't switch people. It's pretty much James Duthie hosting, Bob McKenzie, Pierre LeBrun, Darren Drager, Dave Poulin, Jeff O'Neill,
Craig Button,
yeah. Right?
Yeah.
We know these guys. They've been doing it for years. But when I see, Jeff Merrick, Brian Burke, Anthony Stewart, Kevin Bieksa, Elliot Friedman, Caroline Cameron, It's like they threw them in a room together for a couple of days. Said, okay, you're our guys, and there's no chemistry there. Whereas the chemistry with the TSN guys have been around, and also too, even with with Ron McLean, no matter who he's with on the panel, I mean, Ron, it's formulaic. Ron does his statement, he defers to so and so, this particular expert who goes on about whatever, and then after that, Ron says, "Okay, Elliot, your thoughts," that kind of a thing.
Right.
But you're right about Brian Burke. Brian Burke is just why
miserable.
would I want to look at Brian Burke?
I've never been a big fan, but I just find him so sour. Like I'm watching. I was literally it was me and the 6-year-old. Okay, we're just like, let's watch Leafs and Habs, and then this guy comes on, and I couldn't be bothered. I didn't even listen to the panel, to be honest with you. I just noticed Elliot's hair.
Disappointing opening telecast for those of us who've been waiting, chalishing on Spilkas, waiting for hockey, couldn't wait. And your opener is Montreal, Toronto. I was disappointed.
Okay, but Hebsy, I felt it looked like it was too many cooks in the kitchen, to be honest. Like, that's a lot
too
of
many talking heads. So, too many elements.
It says you want the A team, because I would argue that the guy calling the game, Chris Cuthbert, is your best guy, and that Jeff. I'm a big Jeff fan. I think. I mean, he's not Ron McLean, but Ron McLean obviously was set for Saturday or whatever. But Jeff Merrick is a pretty damn good host of these things, don't you think?
He's got to get better, I think.
Well, what do we? He's been at it a long time.
He's not, and you're right. You can't compare him with Ron McLean's been doing it for 30 years. You can't compare him with David Amber, who's been anchoring, big events like the Olympics and such for a number of years. Jeff is still, he's still young. I mean,
he's 50.
Well, I don't mean that. When I say young, I mean young as far as experience goes on the national level. To my knowledge, Jeff Merrick was never a reporter. He never went into the locker rooms and, dug out stuff.
Right.
So he didn't serve his time in the trenches. He's pretty much we're going to put you on camera. And he's done a lot of talk shows and stuff like that. Don't get me wrong. But again, it's not the same. It's not the same. And if he's your host for your big Montreal, Toronto, across the country thing,
right.
I think they should have included him in the telecast. Sure. But why wasn't David Amber or Ron McLean hosting the opening game? So,
love your insight.
By the way, Sportsnet, listen, they got rid of Kevin Quinn and Drew Remedia from their Oilers telecast. They just parted ways, did not renew their contracts for this year, and they just bumped up the radio play-by-play for the Oilers. Jack Michaels, he got bumped up. Now, Kevin Quinn, 19 years as the voice of the Edmonton Oilers on Sportsnet. 19 years.
Wow.
And Drew Remedia had been there for the last 6 years.
It's funny, Matt Layden of all people.
Just like Brendan Dunlop and just like Dave Randorf.
Right.
Sportsnet, didn't say a word. Like, they didn't make the big announcement.
No.
They kind of were like, we'd like to thank them for their, hey, come on. Guy spends 19 years with you, and he's your Oilers guy. Come on. Not renewing his contract, fine, but at least, come up with a nice little thank you for your service, that kind of a thing. Sportsnet didn't do that with Brendan Dunlop, didn't do it with Dave Randorf. Sorry, man.
So shout out to Dave Randorf, who landed on his feet. He's got a play-by-play gig for the Lightning, I believe, for Tampa Bay.
Absolutely. But when I contacted him, when I had mentioned it last spring, and I said to him, he thanked me. He said, thanks for reaching out. It was awfully nice of you. Not a lot of people are doing that. And certainly not his bosses at Sportsnet. They didn't, say, hey, let's celebrate Dave Randorf, who, was here for a number of years and did this and that. I mean, they just, nothing, no announcement, nothing. Crickets. Crickets.
Tough business.
Baseball now, 31-year-old reliever Liam Hendricks got 4 years and $54 million guaranteed to sign with the Chicago White Sox. Crazy money, Mike. This is nuts. Apparently the Jays were once again the runners-up in the battle to sign Hendricks.
Always the bridesmaid, never the bride.
Yeah, and runners-up in the Francisco Lindor trade negotiations. And for all I know, they're going to end up being runners-up in the Trevor Bauer negotiations. And Trevor Bauer's been very active on social media. What, does Toronto still like me? What's going on? And so he's playing. He's having fun with it, right?
Right.
In the meantime, Mark Shapiro gets a new 5-year deal from Rogers. And what's he going to do? Is he going to go out and sign guys? Is he just going to take the money and stick it in his pocket and keep developing players so that we've got a championship team maybe by 2025? Huh? When Vladdy is 26 years old and Bo is 27 years old and Kevin Biggio's 30 years old And Teoscar Hernandez is 31 years old. Is this what we're going for here? Or is this the year? Or is next year the year with that team?
Hope they do something, because I don't want to bring up the Marcus Stroman tweet, but it does seem like they're not helping out these young studs we've got on this lineup. I don't know what your thoughts are on that, but we need some help, right?
My thoughts are, you're looking at the landscape and you're looking at the money that the Yankees are spending and the money that the Red Sox, well, they're not spending quite as much, but I mean, you're looking, saying, when's our best opportunity to win or at least be a playoff contender in the American League East? I think that has a lot to do with it. I think when he was with Cleveland, he looked at the American League Central, and it's not that difficult. We get by them. The White Sox, we can look after case, but not so much in the East. So I think, it's kind of like, let's see if we can plan it so that our curve reaches its max right around the time where maybe the Yankees and Tampa and Boston might be struggling a bit. But I mean, you can't go into the fire against a team like the Yankees that are spending hundreds of millions of dollars on free agents.
Right.
You just don't have the same cash that they do. You never will. Same with Boston. No matter how much money Rogers has, they can't compete with Yankees and Boston money if those teams want to spend. They have to develop their own talent, which they've been doing. Bo Bichette is a product of the farm system. Vladdy Guerrero Jr. is a product of the farm system. Kevin Biggio is a product of the farm system. Teoscar Hernandez, they got in that trade for, I think, Aaron Sanchez. Was that the deal? Was that the one?
I think that's the one.
Okay, so, but I'm saying that you're developing your own core of players. Danny Jansen is from the Blue Jays farm system. That's the way you develop your talent. And then you add your pieces once you've got those guys. Then you add your free agents. Then you make your trades for your key guys. Well, if this isn't the year, and I think we had mentioned this a few years ago, if this isn't the year, 2021, they're looking at 2022, 2023, 2024, 2025. Right? There's your curve. Make the playoffs. Get past the round of the playoffs, your wild card round. Get into the American League Championship Series. Win the American League Championship Series so you can get to the World Series. Win a World Series. If that's the plan, okay. Got to make the playoffs this year. And look, last year they had a fine season. They really did. We did not expect them to do as well as they did, right?
We were not expecting to play a playoff game last year.
There you go. Bonus. But now that you've told it, now that you've shown us that you have the potential to beat all these other teams, and you're maybe a couple players away, and not just a couple players away, the development of these players. Imagine how much better Vladdy can be. Imagine how much better Bo and Kevin can be, and Lourdes Gurriel Jr. and Teoscar Hernandez. Imagine how much better they can be after seeing them play last year. They can't help but getting better as long as they stay healthy. So I'm very excited.
Awesome.
TFC signed a new coach. 48-year-old Chris Armas used to be the coach of the New York Red Bulls. He inherits a team that is used to going deep in the playoffs. So he'll be under the gun right away, which is, I like to see that. I don't want to see them taking a step backwards, this team. And Craig Vanny, who was the very successful coach of TFC and won a championship, of course, is now the new coach of the LA Galaxy. So good for him. Good luck. And English soccer, of course, I had mentioned some teams have really had some problems with COVID, and they've postponed games, which I think they should have had to forfeit, but that's my business. And my team, Tottenham Hotspur, had a game against Fulham the other day. They drew 1-1. They were leading 1-0. Son hit the goalpost. It would have made it 2-0, and then Fulham came back and tied it. This outrage.
Did you ever comment on that? Because I was reading about it, but the greatest discrepancy between quality of teams ever. Like, you never commented on Hebsy on Sports yet. Can you? No, for us dummies like
that's
me.
That's the FA Cup. Now,
okay,
the FA Cup is.
But how does that happen? Because it sounds like it was just these plumbers
right.
and.
Yeah, right. So what happens in the FA Cup basically is any team can take on any other team in a draw. Any team can get in. A club team, right? You and 10 of your friends.
Really?
Only that's really the only tournament. The only other thing would be like the PGA, like the movie Tin Cup.
Yeah, of course. Yeah.
Okay, so Tin Cup. Is that's the PGA Champion, or the U.S. Open, sorry. And the U.S. Open is open to anyone, as long as you qualify, amateur or professional. You could be a bum and you could have all unmatched golf clubs. But if you win your regional and your sectional and your qualifying, then you earn your way into the U.S. Open. Doesn't matter who you are. All right. And even though Tin Cup is a fictional story, it's kind of based on a true story of some of these golfers, and one in particular who was like a farmer. I can't even think of his name. And he ended up like qualifying and winning and qualifying. And who is this guy? And all that stuff. I'm sorry about that.
I think that's Kevin Costner calling. He wants to talk about Tin Cup.
Anyway, it's just the whole idea that in the FA Cup, you can have a team that's like the 8th tier.
Yeah.
You get paid a couple £100 maybe to play, and you get a chance to play and host a match against Tottenham Hotspur.
But that's unbelievable. That's a movie. Like that to me is
it is. It's a movie. It would have been a movie if they would have won,
or if they had
even drew the game,
or even scored a goal.
But they were so happy.
Yeah.
Because it's just north of Liverpool. It's called Marine. They were so happy.
Yeah.
And remember, and they couldn't sell any tickets because people couldn't watch, even though if outside the grounds, you saw lots of people,
right?
Several dozen people, it looked like, that were outside the grounds, outside the fences, that were watching, sipping wine and stuff like that. It was pretty cool.
Wow.
And just the idea that this team could even play. And remember, to get to this, I think it was the 4th round.
Yeah.
They had to win 3 matches in the FA Cup.
Right.
So they had beaten a team from the 6th tier. They had beaten a team from the 3rd tier.
Right.
To advance to this particular point.
That's a Cinderella story, man. I just wish they had scored. Imagine they had scored a goal. Like, just imagine that moment.
Oh, my God. They almost did. They hit the goalpost in the first 15 minutes. They hit the bar. Yeah. Oh, my God. It would have been wild.
Wow. And so I have a question with your Spurs. So is it just that, and I didn't watch the game, I just read about it, but they go up 5 and then they just make the extra passes, and like they must at some point stop scoring, right?
Yeah. Once they were up 5, he put in the kids. He put in the youngsters.
Still, they could dominate.
They were up 4, and
right.
they put in the kids. And then the 16-year-old kid became the youngest ever to score for Tottenham Hotspur.
Wow.
When he scored the 5th goal. And then from there, they just they passed it around. They had a couple of chances, but they really, you don't want to rub it in that badly.
Right.
And goal differential doesn't matter in a case like
amazing.
This.
I think that's amazing. Imagine you could tell your grandkids about the time you played. I don't even know the stars. Gareth, what's the big stars?
The big stars are Harry Kane and Son Heung-min. Yeah.
Is there a Gareth on
Gareth
that?
Bale. Gareth Bale was a star.
Okay. Gotcha. Okay. I'm up to date now.
It was. It's great. And that's just it. The FA Cup, you just never know, man, because there's always these matches where this team you've never heard of before. And here comes Arsenal to play them. In some little town somewhere, and the whole town goes crazy. And in fact, what they wanted to do, I think they wanted to sell 500 virtual tickets.
Okay.
For this game in Marine to help support the squad.
Oh, sure, yeah.
They sold over 30,000. I think they sold close to 30,000 virtual tickets. They sold scarves. They sold T-shirts, anything they could with, Tottenham versus Marine.
Wow.
So it was really great for soccer. It was really good to see. Can you imagine that in the Stanley Cup? Imagine if they had an open tournament where there'd be a play-in qualifier for the Stanley Cup. Any team, put your team together, and then you'd have to go through playdowns. You'd have to go through qualifying,
right,
to be able to get that one play-in spot.
Right, and there's
it's like in the NCAA basketball tournament where they have that play-in, that team a school you've never heard of before,
right,
from Hopkins, Kentucky,
right,
and they're
taking on Duke, right, exactly.
Exactly. People love Cinderella stories.
Oh,
right out of the movie Hoosiers.
No doubt. Absolutely. It's like the Miracle on Ice.
It's Rocky at its best. Tell me when you saw the movie Rocky.
Yeah.
You didn't cry.
Well, he lost, though, in Rocky. I know. But
doesn't matter. He got the chance. He got his shot.
I know. I love Rocky.
Dream.
I love Rocky.
That was his dream. His dream was to just be, fight for the championship. And I'm sure all of these teams' dreams would be to play in an FA Cup. Play on the same grounds as Tottenham Hotspur or Manchester City or Liverpool or Man U or Chelsea. Come on.
Unbelievable.
American football, 8 teams left in the NFL playoffs. Big matchup, of course, featuring the Buffalo Bills and 24-year-old quarterback Josh Allen hosting the Baltimore Ravens and 24-year-old quarterback Lamar Jackson. The Bills favored by 2 points in this game. I'm calling Buffalo to win it by a field goal in the dying seconds.
Wow. No Scotty Norwood.
It's done. The Bills win. They're going to the AFC Championship.
When is this game, Hebsy? I want to make sure I watch
Saturday night in Buffalo. Saturday night.
So is it up against the Leafs game? No, I just want to know how much toggling.
Game, I think is at 7. And the Buffalo game's at like 8:20 or something like that.
So I'll be toggling. That's great, though.
You can toggle there. Meanwhile, on Sunday night, 43-year-old Tom Brady and 42-year-old Drew Brees will battle it out in New Orleans as the Bucs play the Saints.
Wow.
Their combined 85 years is the oldest combination of quarterbacks to ever play in an NFL game. 85 years.
Any game.
Any game.
Wow.
Any NFL game.
That's crazy.
A 43 and a 42-year-old starting quarterback? Come on.
I thought maybe there was like a week 3 game at some point where I don't know.
No, but even so, who would the quarterback be?
I don't know.
Who would the guy be?
You're right. I don't know.
Who would the two guys be? Never mind. You could have one guy that was 48, but you'd still have to have another guy who was like 37 or whatever the number, right?
That's incredible.
85 years between the two of them. I love it. Love it.
That's wild.
I'm going to call the Bucks in this one only because Brady is such a champion. Even though New Orleans is favored by 3, I'm going to take Tampa Bay. The other games have the Packers hosting the Rams on Saturday. The Pack a 7-point pick. I'll go with Green Bay on the frozen tundra of Lambeau Field in Green Bay. And Sunday afternoon, it's Kansas City hosting the Cleveland Browns. Chiefs favored by 10. I'm going to call the Brownies to cover, but I think KC will win the game.
Okay. And so in your scenario, this sets up the KC Bills showdown that we've been anticipating all season.
Yes, I don't want to get too far ahead of myself, but that's what I'm
Don't
predicting.
count those chickens with the Bills. So, okay.
That's what I'm predicting.
I thought they were going to blow that game last weekend, to be honest.
Shh. I know. And never mind that, if that kicker doesn't miss a field goal and if their coach doesn't make a couple of stupid calls.
But that ref made a bad call.
Frank Reich, by the way, was the coach.
Right, of course. Last time they won
the Colts.
Last time they won a home
Buffalo
game.
maybe doesn't win, but maybe they learn from their mistakes. I don't know. But Lamar Jackson's a hell of a quarterback, and you know what? Baltimore's got a great running game, and they're really going to test. Baltimore averages almost 200 yards a game on the ground.
Wow.
Almost twice as much as Buffalo on the ground. Buffalo really relies on their passing. And Buffalo's defense is suspect, yes?
Yeah. And
they're suspect to the run, and that's Lamar Jackson's got a great pair of legs, man. He can scare the hell out of you, especially if he runs out of the pocket. Oh, boy. And Josh Allen is not, he's pretty good too. So I'm looking forward to a great game.
That's, me too, man.
Saturday night, tomorrow night.
It's going to be awesome.
And finally, Mike, American broadcaster J.P. Morosi, John Paul Morosi, who I'm sure you've heard before on, I think he used to be on McCowan's radio show a fair bit.
Yeah, that's where I know him from. Right.
He has produced his Hall of Fame ballot for baseball, and he's put pitcher Mark Buehrle on the ballot.
For eating
innings?
And
he tweeted it out, here's my ballot. Now, I like John Paul Morosi, but he's way off here. Right. And I like Mark Buehrle, who was a very good pitcher. But never once did I ever, even when he threw a no-hitter, ever say, this guy's going to the Hall of Fame.
I always say
Not
this.
once.
For a guy like that, I just say this. Who's a better pitcher, Dave Stieb or Mark Buehrle?
There's no comparison. Dave Stieb, a much better pitcher.
And Stieb never got in the Hall.
Every year.
And he never got in the Hall.
No.
You might as well put R.A. Dickey in the Hall if you're putting Burley in there.
Mark Buehrle won 214 games. That's nice. His lifetime ERA was 3.81. Right? But here's the key, Mike. The key is this. In all of his years, in 16 years in the Major Leagues, how many times do you finish in those 16 years did he finish in the top 10 in Cy Young voting? Not the top 3.
Oh.
The top 10 in Cy Young voting over 16 years. How many times was Mark Buehrle in the top 10? In other words, how many times was he in the running
I'm going to guess
the best pitcher in the American League?
I'm going to guess twice.
One time.
Oh.
One time. 2006, he was 5th in the voting. Well, and that's it. So if he wasn't in the conversation every year, if it's 16 years in the American League, what about the guys ahead of him? What about the guys who during that time period were in the top 10 5 times?
Right.
Or actually won the Cy Young?
The Dave Stiebs of the world, who, how many years was he in the top 5? Many.
Oh, many. It was him and Jack Morris like every year, right?
I'm still mad. I don't know why he's on the outs. I don't know. No one even talks about him.
And listen, I would never say this. I would never, if someone got into any Hall of Fame or for that matter, this is the type of person I am. I'm this kind of a guy. If anyone achieved anything, I would never say they didn't deserve what they got. I never would say he doesn't belong in the Hall of Fame. Mm-hmm. You didn't deserve to get that doctorate. You shouldn't have gotten that honor. I would never do that. But if someone is not in the Hall, I can give a lot of reasons why I don't think that person should reach that achievement.
Right.
Because you're voted in, right? You have to earn it. Someone has to say, we're nominating this person. And then the voters have to go, we're going to vote him in. If that's the format to get in.
Right.
Now, I don't know if that's the format for the Accountants Hall of Fame. I don't know who the great accountants of the world are. And I don't have the expertise to say, well, that guy shouldn't be in the Accountants Hall of Fame, right? He's not good enough. I don't know how that goes, but I can tell you when it comes to sports and certainly baseball, I see a guy or a woman, I say, that's a Hall of Famer. And Mark Buehrle is not a Hall of Famer, period.
Agreed.
All right. I think that's going to wrap it, Mike. That's our episode 215 of Hebsy on Sports. We were supposed to be on YouTube today. We had some technical problems there, so we did it on the Facebook channel.
But you know, Hebsy, as I'm thinking about all this, here's a production note that listeners might be interested in. As I'm thinking about this, I'm thinking I might be able to get the video anyways and put it on your YouTube page. So it won't be live on YouTube, but you could have this episode on your YouTube, and then we could get this fixed for next week.
Beautiful. And yeah, my fault too. I touched some things I shouldn't have touched, and we couldn't get it done today.
Hang on after this episode, Hebsy. We'll do a little test.
You got it, Mike. You got it. All right. So that's it for episode 215. Thanks as always to Toronto Mike for production and inspiration. I hit him up at Toronto Mike. He's got a fantastic podcast with interesting, entertaining guests. So check out Mike. And of course, we're back with you next Friday morning, 9:20 a.m. Eastern time. Don't forget the Hebsy channel, the YouTube channel is called Live from Toronto with Hebsy. And I'll be posting all kinds of stuff, not just our podcasts, but some other interesting posts, some observations as I do my daily walks around the city of Toronto. And some of the things that I come across are, I think, quite interesting and funny and worth posting. So I'll have that. I'll have commentaries. I'll have sportscasts and all that. So go to my YouTube channel and subscribe. Tell your friends, and let's build up the subscriptions here and get the good content out there. So until we speak to you next time, thanks for allowing us into your headspace. And we're back next Friday with another exciting episode of Hebsy on Sports. Until then, so long for now. This podcast has been produced by TMDS and accelerated by Roam Phone. Roam Phone brings you the most reliable virtual phone service to run your business and protect your home number from unwanted calls. Visit roamphone.ca to get started.
All right, let me turn off the live stream, and then I need to try something with you. Hold on. Where are we here? Stop all.
Okay.